Anthony Accatatta, shipfitter second class. We did a cruise into the Persian Gulf, and that was very interesting. We went as far as Pakistan. We went through a typhoon as we left Pakistan, and that was quite interesting. And anybody that's been through a hurricane at sea knows what that's like. And one of the times that I was on watch as sounding in security watch, I was climbing up to the bridge. You have to report once an hour to the bridge to give them your report. And I was climbing up outside the structure on one of the outside ladders, and the ship heeled over. I went down, I slipped, and there's netting down at the lower part of the railing. And somehow that netting was not fastened right, probably it rotted out, and my feet went over the side, and I just grabbed the next rail up, and then the ship went backwards, and I was able to get back on my feet. But that was a close call that could have been very, very bad. Let's see, as far as other things, oh, we had some interesting times. Like one of the stops was in Yemen, and in the city of Aden. And I was very good with photography back in those days. And one of the guys asked me to, he was on duty, he couldn't get ashore. And this was a place where all the ships in the world that were going through the Suez Canal would funnel through Aden first. And they carried every kind of device that you would want to buy in the world. And he said, would you go ashore and buy this particular camera for me? So I said, sure, I'll do it. And I got in the boat because we were anchored out. There's really no docking facilities there, even now. I went aboard and I checked out a couple of different camera shops, and found the camera that he wanted, made a deal for the camera, and the guy wraps it up. I go back on the boat, go on the ship, give him the camera, and then go back to my compartment. He comes up mad as anything about 5 minutes later. He says, what am I supposed to do with this piece of junk? I said, what do you mean? He says, it's all in pieces. I says, well, I held it right in my lap. I didn't even want to put it down for fear that it might get damaged. He says, look at it. And it was actually taken apart. Not that it was broken. Somebody had taken it apart. So these guys in the camera shop somehow switched the camera on me. So I go back there. I said, okay, I'll take care of it. I go back there. And I say to the guy, this is what you gave me, I want my money back. He says, I didn't sell you that. And back then, in those countries, in the Arab countries, they didn't give you any receipts or anything. You gave them the money, they gave you the goods, and that was it. So I had nothing to prove it. I said, look, I said, I bought this here. And we're ensuing into an argument. And then this guy comes out of this back room. This was a big guy. And he's got a dagger. A lot of the people there, back in those days, I don't know if they still do, would carry a knife on there. And he comes walking out, and this knife is sticking out. I'm saying, boy, I'm in trouble here. And the guy says, no, you didn't buy it. I said, look. I said, you know that I bought it here. You know that you switched the goods on me. I said, and I didn't have this. I said, I've got 6 guys waiting down the street. They're waiting for me. If I don't get back there within the next 5 minutes, they're going to come in here and your shop isn't going to look the way that it looks right now. So I said, just please give me my money and I'll be out of your hair. And they mumbo-jumbo back and forth. And finally they said, oh, okay, we'll give you the money. Then he tried to short me by $10. So it was not a good experience. I finally got that $10. I said, no, $10 more, and I'll be out of your hair. And I did, and I very gently walk out of the store, and I get to the front door and run like the blazes back to the boat landing. Because I didn't know whether they were going to follow me or what. But that was an interesting experience, too. one trip, one of the things that I did while I was on the ship, I was the unofficial photographer. The cruise book, I think from '62, just about 80% of the photos in that book I did. And I had set up a darkroom later on. What happened, my division officer came to me and said that we've got orders to take certain pictures in certain locations when we go into harbors for intelligence purposes. Plus, we're going to be meeting a lot of Russian ships, and they're going to be setting up an intelligence team to identify what those ships are, what kind of radio equipment they have, what kind of radar equipment, and we need somebody to take pictures as part of that team. So whenever we approached a ship that they thought might be a Russian ship, they would call the intelligence team to the bridge. We would go up there, and between the radar men and the radio men, they would look at the antenna arrays to try to figure out the electronics that they were carrying. I would take the pictures, and because of my background, before I even entered the Navy, it was something that I had an interest in ships, so I knew the different types of ships, the sizes, and some of the specs. So it was useful from that standpoint. And it actually, after half a dozen of these sessions when we were approaching a Russian ship, they wound up, they didn't even bother calling the rest of the intelligence team unless it was something really special. They would just call Accatatta to the bridge to get these photos. And one of the things, when we were going through the Suez Canal, Egypt at the time was allied with Russia, and they were in receipt of a new MiG fighter, and the United States didn't know anything about them, and they wanted information on it. So I was briefed on, when we're going through this canal, it's right next, the canal is right next to this airstrip, and we want to get pictures of these new fighters that they have. So me and my brilliant concept said, you know what I could do? If you can get me to shore, I can steal a boat and make believe that I'm fishing. I'll put on an Arab garb and I'll make believe I'm fishing, and then I'll get to shore and I can get right onto the airfield. And luckily, cooler heads prevailed. You know, when you're young and invincible, you think you can do anything. And the officers, the first lieutenant said no. He says that if you're caught like that, you're going to be tried as a spy. And he says, that's not a good idea. We'll get whatever pictures we can, and we'll go from there. So a couple of days we stopped at Port Said, I think it was, which was at the northern end of the canal, whichever one. It was either Port Suez or Port Said. And then one day we get over the 1MC comes Accatatta to the bridge, Accatatta to the bridge on the double. I grab my camera and I run out, and as I'm coming out of the hatch, I can hear the jets coming over. They were right, probably 50 feet over the mast. So I'm coming out of the hatch and I'm clicking. I said, oh, that's perfect. What we used to do is take the film, and as soon as we took the pictures, we'd helicopter it over to the carrier. They'd send a helicopter, and then we'd offload the film, and then they would fly it either to Naples or a place in Greece. I think most of the times it was Naples. And then the guys would develop them and do their thing to identify whatever they were looking for. So I go up to the bridge. I said, I think I got some great shots. I opened the camera and there's no film in it. I felt so stupid. And I felt like I really failed, which I did, because they would have been tremendous shots. And so we never did get good pictures of them. We got pictures from a distance, but I don't think they would have been useful. We sent them over. but we never got these pictures right at the underbelly of these things, which would have been some great shots.